Hi, my name is Lisa Parziel, and we're going to talk about SEO basics, search engine optimization basic skills, and specifically how to optimize your website to dominate page one. We're going to do that showing you how to build content and then how to link using that content to actually rank a page in Google. So the first thing we're going to talk about is you want to grab as much real estate as you can. Your chances of being selected as a consumer for your product or for whatever it is you're trying to gain for being on page one are going to increase exponentially as you increase the exposure you have to your client. In other words, grabbing as much real estate as you can. Now, if you look at what I'm showing you on the screen, notice that this particular listing, not only are they listed in Google and do they show up in a search, but also underneath it shows 6 other pages from their website. That's grabbing a larger portion of real estate. Or maybe you've seen where somebody might show up once, twice, 3 times. I've actually had a client as many as 11 times on page one, and that same client has been anywhere from 6 to 11 places on page one for the past 4 years. How do we do that? Well, we actually optimize the website and optimize each of those pages that happen to be showing. I always find it's better to dominate page one with your own content than external content. Now, I'm okay with showing up clients with Yelp and Facebook and other activities and social media and blogs and news and things like that. But at the end of the day, you control your website, you control your content, and you can always put in front of your prospective customers or buyers exactly what you want them to see. So how do we go about doing this? Well, first and foremost, we want to talk about content. Content is extremely important and should not be taken lightly. You'll hear a lot about link building. You'll hear a lot about all these tips and techniques and strategies and cheats and hacks. Don't ignore content. We have been ranking websites purely with content strategies for years. And when there's an algorithm update, our content-driven SEO strategy rarely has any issue. Sure, we might see a little up and down when something first comes out, but nothing major and nothing that causes concern to us or to our clients. So let's talk about what constitutes great content. Well, first and foremost, that content should be unique and robust. So what do I mean by that? Unique, as close to 100% unique as you can get. In other words, Google has never seen this content before. And I will talk about a tool that you can use to go check for that uniqueness. The content should be anywhere from 800 to 1200 words or more. Thin content. So in other words, small amounts of content on a page just don't go over well with Google anymore. Long gone are the days where you could put a paragraph of text on a page about something and rank it. Realistically, you're looking at 8 to 1200 words of good quality content. Now remember, good quality content does not mean going out and using cheat tools, scrapers, spinners. Now, while I'm not against spinning content, if you're going to spin content, you need to do it very, very well. And what I mean by well is we can actually spin content that actually reads at a higher grade level than most content written by human beings. That is the type of content you want. Highly professional, good quality content. We typically have writers who write our content for us and that we pay to write good quality content. Those writers are here in the US, but you can find writers abroad that can do just as good of a job in some cases. Now, when we write our content, we want to make sure we have just the right amount of optimization. What do I mean by that? Don't overstuff with keywords. Don't use multiple keywords over and over and over again thinking it's going to help you, because it's not. It's actually going to hurt you. And when somebody comes across that content, it's going to read so poorly that they won't be really enticed to buy or use the service that you're trying to sell. The next thing you want to look at is your H1, H2, and H3 tag usage. So heading 1, heading 2, or heading 3 in HTML, these tags should be used accordingly. So the H1 typically is your title. Many WordPress themes make the title of the page an H1 by default. If not, you need to put one on the page, and use your keyword in each of these. The H2 typically are your subtitles, and then the H3 can use as well, whether it be at the end of the page or down towards the bottom of the page. Again, in each of these tags, you're going to use the keywords. You're also going to make sure you use title and metadata on every single page. If you're using WordPress, there is a way to do that with most themes. And typically the title tag is whatever the page name is at the top of the page. The metadata, however, typically in WordPress is only done once and used on every page. You'll either want to use a plugin or some type of software to go ahead and change that metadata for every single page. If you're not using WordPress and you're using some type of language, you can typically do these things either by hand, doing it statically, or in some cases you can do it dynamically through a database. Either way, this data should be very centric to the key phrases and the content that are on that page. Every page is going to use assets, what we call on-page assets. And you want to use varying types of assets, and you want to use different quantities of assets. And so, as long as you're using some type of asset, all it's going to do is increase the ability to add more content and things that Google can actually list and put into their algorithm when they're doing searches. So things like videos and images, audio, all of these things are assets that you want to optimize. And what I mean by optimization, there's ways for each of these things to do things with either the key phrases, do things with the metadata behind them, and do things with things like translations and the such. That goes beyond the scope of this video, but we do have videos where we show you how to do those things. So remember, the same with assets, do not over-optimize. Over-optimization will actually hurt your SEO efforts instead of helping them. So let's go ahead now and look at a practical example of doing what we just learned. I'm going to jump on over to my website, and I'm going to go ahead and just real quick look at a post that I wrote this morning just for making this video on content marketing and quality content. So I'm going to edit that, and I'm just going to demonstrate what I've done in here, and then we're going to add a little bit to it so you can learn this technique. So first and foremost, notice that the word that I was thinking through here was content marketing or content. It's really what I was looking to do. So notice in my phrase here, I have content marketing and quality content. Google now demands it. I then down here put content marketing, quality content. Google is the name of this article. I don't need and, I don't need, all the extra words, just something unique as an identifier for that page. But it's also using those keywords. Why? Because this will be a link that Google sees. So content marketing will be what they see, the very first part of that link. So we want that. When we come down here on the page, I didn't do everything right because on the video I wanted to be able to fix some of this stuff. So notice where the first thing I say is when it comes to quality, nothing will make folks stand up. So what I really need to make sure, remember, content marketing is the key phrase I'm trying to go for here. So I should say when it comes to content marketing, and add that key phrase in here. Why? Because we want to use content marketing as the first keywords right in the sentence, and then I'm going to bold it so Google knows that I think that's important. And then I go on with the article, and notice there's not a lot said here about content marketing. And then I could add here earlier this month, instead of site owners, I could say content marketing experts began noticing Google ranking changing. So again, I'm trying to use content marketing, not overly, notice I'm not overly using it if you actually read the article. And then down here, this is an H2. So by default, my template makes this an H1. Then I have two H2s. One does not use the key phrase, one does. And then I'm going to go out by coming down here and just say, for more information about content marketing, click here. And maybe I have something about content marketing specifically and I get really into it on my website. Maybe that's the page I'm really trying to rank instead of this one. Either way, again, I'm using content marketing. This time I'm going to make this an H3, a heading 3. Now I've used an H1, an H2, and an H3 on this page that actually has my keywords in it. I'll put a tag down here for content marketing. And then I also want to, point out that if you had a category for content marketing, that would be best. I don't, but that would be best to have that here. Now, what I'm missing is I actually don't have any assets on this page. So typically we want to put an asset. So that's typically an image. Once you have content, typically the next step in ranking something, whether it be a web page, an entire website, or really just some entity out there, is aside from all the on-page, on-site SEO strategies, now we're going to talk about off-site SEO strategies. And the first thing people think about is linking. And linking is highly important to your strategy. But let's go over a couple ground rules first before we show you really what type of link strategy we use. So first, think smart and safe, meaning you don't want to do something that could potentially get your client in trouble or potentially lose ranking and or even get banned from Google. So we typically use smart, safe strategies that will ensure that the customer is protected and gets the job done. I do note that sometimes these strategies take a little bit longer, but they have longevity. So if you set the customer up right to tell them, hey, first and foremost, this might take a little while, then you can go out and do the work that needs to be done solidly so they stay ranked and you're not always looking for the next trick, gimmick, hack, or to make things work. So what do we use? Well, you can use a private blog network, make sure it's a reputable one, or a PBN, if you don't want to go out and create some of the assets needed to create a very robust link strategy. And so what that means is you go out and you rent blogs from somebody or you use their private blog network to build your own blogs or things like that. So you could use those. You can also do a lot of on-site linking. And I think a combination of all these things is best. But on-site linking is when you're linking from pages within your own site to the content within your own site. And Google does give some weight and credit for that type of linking. Off-site linking, or what we call Web 2.0 type of asset linking, is probably the most popular. You see that all the time. And a PBN could be part of an off-site linking strategy. So what does that mean? Well, that means other things other than your website, or the money site as I like to call it. So that could be social media, that could be blogs and articles and e-zines and things like that. When you're thinking about putting together a link strategy, one of the main things that you want to understand is the thing that you're trying to actually rank. So we'll call that the money site. The thing that you're trying to rank needs to be protected, and you want to make sure that nothing happens to it. It doesn't get delisted or penalized by any of the search engines, especially Google. The easiest way to do that is to really buffer it and to layer in your link strategy to make sure it's not going to be impacted or affected, but all of that link juice, as we like to call it, passes through to that site to help it rank. Now, you've already learned about other techniques, hopefully, and understand that there's a lot that goes into making sure you rank. So optimizing everything, using the various asset types and places. So this is just one other piece to the puzzle. So what I'm about to show you is a tiered system. So the next layer in that, so here's our money site, we would typically then start creating second tier assets. So what really is a second tier asset? Well, for me, I like to use things like Facebook and Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, things that I control and I own and that I'm going to use on a regular basis so that they are coming from an authoritative site, but yet it's stuff that I still control. So as I write something on Twitter, for example, and link to my site, we're going to follow this little path and notice that's link juice. And as I might write something from Facebook, it would come here and pass to my site, link juice. Now remember, we're going to have link backs to our website. So we'll call second tier maybe social media and reputable, controllable blogs. Once we have those built, and I'm showing 2, you might need to have 3, 4, 10, 20. It depends on how competitive that particular asset is, so that page. It depends on how competitive it is. on how many of these links and how much of this you're going to have to do. So once you have your second tier, we're going to move on to the third tier. When we're talking about the third tier, that's where I would typically do a lot of blogs, e-zines, article sites, things like that. I typically use the second tier for social media, but sometimes some good quality authoritative blogs and things like that. And then I use the third tier for doing more blogs and articles. Now, how that works is you would write an article, for instance, on this third tier. It would link to the article or the entity or be a post or tweet or something like that in the second tier. And then the second tier would come over here and link to the site. So technically you're getting what's called pass-through juice. It's coming from the third tier. That's what we call pass-through link juice. It comes from the third tier, passes through to the second tier, and on through to the website. Typically that's called pass-through SEO juice or link juice. We go from the third tier, it passes down through the second tier, which passes down to the site. So things you're doing on the third tier are actually helping this money site because all of these things, it's kind of, I always like to think of it like a backwards waterfall. So this is flowing up to the site. If we were to flip this down and put the site down here, it'd be like a waterfall. So when you think about that, typically you can get away with, the third tier and that's it. But sometimes if it's a very difficult item to rank, you could add a fourth tier. Now, if you're going to use any of the junk out there, if you're going to use, some of the PBN networks can have, stuff that's just not as good. Maybe you're going to use a Fiverr gig to grab content, those type of things. If you're going to do that, you're going to want to put it on the fourth tier. And that way, as it kind of comes down, it's so far removed from your website that anything that happens here is not going to affect your site typically in a negative way. Now, with that said, I wouldn't go out here and start going crazy creating horrible bad links that come from unreputable places. Again, the way we have been successful in ranking, we have always used quality, good content we control, linking on assets we control to assets we control. Rarely will we use an external asset unless it's a highly reputable, very high page ranking entity. So yes, we'll do things with Facebook and Twitter and things like that, or Pinterest or Instagram, etc. But we definitely won't go out there and buy links or do things that could jeopardize this money site. So the link strategy is the last piece of the puzzle. Once you get the content and the assets, everything's optimized, everything's created correctly, then you're going to go ahead and go out there, start making the links, start adding all of these entities, putting together this type of thing, and it's going. So what type of sites really should you use to target for the second, third, and fourth tier? Let's take a look. I typically really like blog sites. Don't get crazy with these. Don't go out there and put a bunch of bad information out there. We want good quality information even on blog sites. News sites, write great news stories, press releases, news articles, things like that. Listing sites, get listed on as many as you can. And then if the listing site gives you the ability to add more content, add articles, add videos, do that as well. Social media sites are fantastic for interlinking all of this stuff. So the blogs get written in the third tier, pass through to the social media, shares it, and all of it points back to your money site. So love social media sites. There's thousands of these. Partner sites would be sites that really you share with somebody else. Maybe you approach people and ask them if you can put links there. Maybe you're trading links, or you even just own a bunch of sites that you can add links to. So that's what I call partner sites. Image sites are really good, Pinterest, Instagram, anything where you can add captions and keywords and things like that. Video sites are fantastic. Do remember, if you're going to put videos up, make sure you transcribe them, optimize them, do all the things you should for every asset you use. Review and comment sites or places. RSS and Atom feeds are fantastic, audio and podcasts. So you get the idea. There's so many different things you can be doing. And it seems overwhelming to think that one page I have to do all these things, but you'll be surprised using software how much you can get done without having to go through all of this in a major way. So what you're going to find is you can actually use software to automate a lot of this. I'm going to show you one piece of software that we use that's been pretty easy to implement and pretty easy to use, and it helps me to syndicate my content and get it out there quicker and faster and actually create these links. No, it's not SEO Nuke. It's not one of those. It's actually just a simple software that I can use to do the things I want to do, and it's called OnlyWire. So let me just demonstrate that. And I'm going to come out here, and I'm first going to go over here to my OnlyWire account. And when you're looking at OnlyWire, basically its job is to share content. So if I write a blog post, if I write a news article, it's actually going to go out there because I told it to and I added the accounts, and it's going to syndicate that and send it to all the places I tell it to go. So I can come in and pick where I want it to go, give all the information. So here's an article I wrote today that we were just looking at. Automatically it got syndicated by OnlyWire the minute I hit publish. Well, where did it go? Well, I have a plugin that I use that OnlyWire provides that goes for WordPress sites, and I tell it where to go. Go to Facebook, go to this page, go to that page, go to Twitter, go to Google+, go to StumbleUpon, go here, go there. It's basically syndicating this for me, adding the link backs and doing the work automatically. So every time I post a blog article or a post or even add a page, this software is making sure that it goes out there and does that. Now there's more than, OnlyWire is just one of many softwares that do this, and you can find these readily out there. This just happens to be the one I use. I like it because it also allows me to do things with my RSS feeds, with my news accounts, etc., etc. So as I'm working on client stuff, each client I do segregate, meaning I give everyone their own accounts. I make sure that I don't overlap things. That way, if a client decides to run off and leave, or if they ask for access to the assets, I don't have any ambiguity with other clients. So OnlyWire is just one example of how you can do this, and automatically it posted to my Facebook the minute I hit publish, which is fantastic. So do use software as you can. And a couple other pieces of software that I would recommend: ranking, if you're trying to see where you currently rank organically. SERPLab, it's great, it's inexpensive, and it's just what I need. It doesn't have a lot of fancy bells and whistles. Small SEO tools, that's what I use to check my content to make sure it's 100% unique. OnlyWire, we just talked about. We have many tools we come across or we recommend. We typically will make short videos on them and send them out in informative, free information. So if you'd like to get on that list and get those things from us, just jump on secretseo@trophyclients.com. Send us an email. We'll automatically subscribe you. And again, we don't spam. We don't share your information. We don't flood you with a bunch of offers. We might have an offer from time to time, but essentially it's really our community of folks that want to get more information from us, has taken a course from us. The only way you can get in this list is to have been in one of our trainings or been a student of ours. So that's it. I hope that these skills have helped you, and go out there and start doing these things right away. You'll be surprised at how quickly you start seeing your money site, your asset, what you're trying to rank, get higher and higher in the SERPs.